my laptop, and we hooked it because they really liked Breaking Bad, his whole family, and they were really excited because Bryan Cranston's in the movie. And I remember like, okay, we're gonna hook it up and watch it, and it was just like dead silent the whole time, and they did not like that movie at all. A lot of my friends did not like this movie. I mean, I had some, but this movie was weird because it was a movie that you heard a lot of hate for and you heard a lot of love for. There really wasn't a lot of in between.
No, it is very much like you're either on Team Drive and you have to love it till
Mm-hmm.
you're sick about talking about it, or you have to be hating it like it's overrated, it's stupid, like
Yeah.
so.
Um,
Very much now, like you said, and I think the perception of the movie has changed a lot now. Now it's
yeah.
kind of like a big meme, like I
Yes.
said.
Yeah.
Now it's just like these people making fun of cinephiles, being like, "Oh, look, I'm the guy from Drive," like, and it's just like a
Yeah.
picture of like somebody nerdy, like, and like the
That's,
the scorpion jacket because he does have a really cool looking jacket, and
it's a sweet jacket, I'm not gonna lie.
he's got a white driving jacket with a gold scorpion on the back, and like it looks cool in the movie, but if you see anybody in real life like walking around town wearing that, it'd be like super funny.
Yeah, it would be funny. It's a joke because, like, it's a trap that people fall into where you watch a movie and it becomes your personality. Like, oh, then my personality matches the movie, and that's kind of what that meme parodies. Like somebody who sees Ryan Gosling in this movie, and they're just like that is me. I'm just like him. I'm quiet and all this, but you don't have the personality and looks of Ryan Gosling. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. You don't look like Ryan Gosling because he gets away with a lot because of his looks. And
Yes, yes.
like if Ryan Gosling was looking real haggard in this movie, I doubt Carrie Mulligan would give him the time of day.
No,
Oh,
no, not at all.
and that's not a knock on Carrie Mulligan or women or anything like that. I'm just saying, like when you look like Ryan Gosling, which is like next tier,
Yeah,
like looks, it's like you
yeah.
do attract people.
And your husband is in prison, and your next door neighbor is Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, uh, but yeah, that's the thing. So like he's the driver. He doesn't have a name or anything
Yes,
like that.
he does in the
And
book.
oh, does he? What's the book?
Uh,
Because you actually read the book. That's right.
yes, I did a book report of this my senior year of high school. I'm telling you, I was one of these people. And yeah, I read it. It is extremely different from the movie. Actually, the movie pre-planning before it came out was written a lot more like the book. And once Nicolas Winding Refn and the director and Ryan Gosling got together, they changed a lot of it, and they cut out a lot of Ryan Gosling driver's dialogue because in the book he talks a lot. I guess book spoilers for a couple, like maybe for a minute or two, but Carrie Mulligan's character actually dies very early in the book, and it's more about him avenging her death. It's completely different, and I wasn't a big fan of it, but it has its qualities. I don't know what originally I was the point I was
No,
getting.
what? No, what his name?
Oh, his name, sorry, John. His name is John.
John Driver.
John Driver. I think it's first name only. It's been a while, so I don't remember, but yeah, his name is John.
Yeah, he's they don't ever refer to him as anything. They always like
No.
the older guys will call him like the kid or something like
Mhm.
that, or the driver, and the and Carrie Mulligan's like, oh, that's my neighbor. It's like he's a nice guy or something. So
Yeah.
uh, he the movie starts with him as a getaway driver for a robbery,
Hmm.
and he they set the tone pretty well, which is honestly probably like one of the best parts of the movie
Yes.
is the driving scenes, and like it's very clearly like a low budget movie, just but it's like the action scenes in it are very much akin to like a big Hollywood budget movie, so
Hmm.
it's the indie version of a big car chase movie.
Yeah, and I think at the time in 2011 there was something. So the opening car chase scene I think is incredible. I really like that scene because he's a getaway driver for these guys who rob a store, And I just remember one of the big things about this movie is its soundtrack, as you have referenced earlier. And the first scene here has this really great electronic song that goes under it, and it like really matches the tone of this chase scene. I remember 2011, you weren't really hearing soundtracks like this, so I thought that was like crazy to see in a movie.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing. Like this movie has a very, I guess, 80s feel, or like a
Yeah.
a very neon neo noir type of movie, but it's set
Mhm.
in the present day.
Yeah, yeah, but it definitely has like that mood and feeling, like you said, like an 80s thing going on. But God, yeah, that first scene, it does feel so cinematic, like that big chase scene at the beginning.
Yeah, it's very much filmed like a big budget movie, and
Yeah.
that's probably one of the most impressive scenes. But that's not his job. He's not a getaway driver. But he moonlight as a getaway driver, and
Yes,
the
yeah.
rest of the time he is a stunt driver, and he works with Shannon, aka Bryan Cranston. So
Hmm.
Bryan Cranston, like when he was cast in this movie, he was not like huge. The Breaking Bad was like on TV, but it hadn't reached its peak yet.
Yeah, no.
And he was very much like, oh well, he's that guy that's in Breaking Bad. That show is pretty good, type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But he had not reached that pinnacle yet, and he's in this one, and he's like the mentor type of character to him, and
Hmm.
shows him, and he's trying to put like a race car together so that way him and the driver can have like be like a racing team, and they can make a bunch of money. And the only way to get that money is they're going to have to take some from two mobsters that
Hmm.
are Bernie Rose, played by Albert Brooks, and Nino, played by Ron Perlman.
I forgot rewatching this movie how nuts the cast is for this movie.
Oh yeah, I mean, just I forgot one. Like you said, Carrie Mulligan's husband was in prison, gets out. I forgot her husband was played by Oscar Isaac.
Yes, this is like what I know Oscar Isaac from. This is Oscar Isaac pre like being like a huge movie star, because he's really big now. Pre Star Wars and everything.
Yeah, very much like early Oscar Isaacs when
Hmm.
he was just starting out. And
Yeah.
the I will say it's the I'll get into my feelings for the movie a little later, but
Hmm.
one thing I do want to say is, and I don't want to try to overhype it, is Albert Brooks is still like my favorite part of this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I cannot tell you how well he plays such a great villain, and even back then and even now, I still think it's really a shame that he was not nominated for this movie.
Yeah, and I mean, they famously he tweeted that he was angry that he wasn't nominated. I mean, for good reason, because he he's great in this. Like he's insanely good. It's like a, I mean, I'm gonna overhype this movie. I don't care, but I think like it is a very transformative performance. I remember when I first watched this, not even realizing who it was, except for maybe the voice, because he has that iconic voice.
You're like Finding Nemo.
Yeah, exactly. But no, he just plays such a cynical, dark character, but is also like somewhat likable, like almost like I'm a really bad person put in a bad situation. Like he could be somewhat likable, but he can't.
Yeah, I mean, he's a full-on murderer, but you
Yeah,
could tell he gets no pleasure in committing these acts. It's just kind of
yeah,
like, I have to do this. Like, you're forcing me to do this type of thing.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's just the way he does it. I guess he shaved his eyebrows for this role so he would have less emotion. That's a big deal. Wow, what an actor.
Yeah, I mean, I shave my eyebrows all the time to act like I care.
Oh, is that every why I feel better when you have no eyebrows on the show?
That's right. That's right.
Yes, yes.
Just extremely talented cast. Like you said, I completely forget that all these people are in this movie,
Hmm.
and then after watching it now, it's like, oh, it makes sense why I thought this movie was so great back then. And
Yeah.
um, but getting into it, like I said, he plays a stunt driver. They want to get a bunch of money. He loans them the money, and then eventually, he starts getting close to Carrie Mulligan's character. Oh, and Nathan, by the way, did you want a toothpick?
Hey kid, you want a toothpick? One of my favorite moments of this movie. This movie has such small, like, weird moments like that. Like, kids just want toothpicks, right? That's his first thought is like, let me offer this kid a toothpick.
Yeah, he meets Carrie Mulligan. Carrie Mulligan has a son, and
Yeah.
he starts doing like little nice things, like carrying in her groceries, and then he's like hanging out with them, like
Hmm.
go and like you said, the kid just like, oh hey, like he's got like a little Halloween mask on, like running around the
Hmm.
house and say, yeah, you want a toothpick? Like,
In his very quiet voice. Another great moment is the one where he's with Carrie Mulligan in the car and the kid, and he's like, hey, you want to see something cool? And then takes her to like the dumpiest, nastiest sewer water place that they could go to. I think at one point, I forget, I think it's the kid picks up like a dead crab claw that's on the ground, but
yeah,
it has an amazing song under it and under your spell. So it just makes it nice.
yeah. I don't know what it is, but I think because like I just had this image of him in my head where like a lot of the stuff like that Ryan Gosling would talk about, like the times
Mhm.
he would took, it just sounded so funny.
It
Like,
did, yeah. Yeah, like, because Ryan Gosling, it is true, and you notice it whenever more, people point it out to you, is just how much he doesn't talk. He doesn't say a word. So when he says something and it's the most odd things, it comes out really funny.
well, like there's a scene where Carrie Mulligan's husband, Oscar Isaac, his name is Standard, by the way, which I
Yes.
forgot about, and
Yeah.
he gets out of prison and they're having this big welcome home party, and you can
Hmm.
kind of tell Carrie Mulligan's not into it, so she goes outside and sits of her apartment. She starts talking to
Hmm.
the driver, and then Oscar Isaacs comes out, and he comes over to Ryan Gosling, and like at first I thought like Oscar Isaacs was trying to like intimidate him. He's like, "Oh, you're helping my wife? You coming over? You talking to her?" type of thing.
Hmm.
And I was like, yeah, it might be what he was trying to do, but like Ryan Gosling just stares at him, like it just
Yeah.
doesn't say anything, like totally like he looks like he's trying to egg this guy on, like
Yeah. Just like, like, yeah, imagine if some guy's like, yeah, you were hanging out with my wife while I was gone, huh? And just this dude just smiling at you, just "Mhm."
he just got this big smile on his face and like that big grin, and he's just
uh
like he's like, yeah.
yeah, I did hang out with your wife. Doesn't even say that. No, it's so funny. And then like Oscar Isaac doesn't treat like this quietness like it's anything crazy. He's just like, okay, yeah, thank
Yeah, he's
you.
like, okay, he's like, all right, Benicio, let's go let mommy talk to her friends.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's like Ryan Gosling's allowed to act like this. Like, we talked about this on Tuesday where like it's an otherworldly character. Ryan Gosling exists in this world so weirdly because I love the story about how he gets the job at the mechanic shop where Shannon there is just like, yeah, he just walked up and asked for a job and I gave it to him. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
gets away with so much.
Hmm.
Like he's like Alec Baldwin. He doesn't have to ask for anything. He just takes what he wants. Doesn't
He
have to say a word.
No, he does, and he literally doesn't have to say a single word. Um, No, and I mean, I like Ryan Gosling in this role, but it is a bit. It's so interesting looking at it now, like over 10 years later, after this whole role has been joked on this whole
It,
time.
that's such a big. It would take me out of the movie at times,
Yeah,
and I. It's not the movie's fault at all. I
no,
want to make that clear. This is not the movie's fault. It's not Ryan Gosling's fault.
hmm
It's my perception of this movie now, where it's just like totally just like I'm imagining like somebody watching, like you said, like watching this at home, being like,
uh-huh,
"Wow, like that's so cool! Like
yeah.
I want to be just like that."
Yeah, they get ideas in their head. Like I can imagine it right now. There's a really funny scene where Ryan Gosling goes to shake Albert Brooks' hand and is like, and Albert Brooks holds out his hand to shake his hand, and Ryan Gosling's like, "My hands are dirty."
But it's like an uncomfortable silence beforehand, where
Yeah,
he like Albert Brooks sticks out his hand. Ryan Gosling stares at his hand for like 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, then he finally says, my hands are dirty.
And
It's
then,
like,
oh, my hands are too dirty too. Or what is it?
mine are too, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, mine are too. And I bet you there's some guy at home like, I'm gonna use that line one of these days.
Next time someone shakes my hand, I'm gonna just stare at them and say my hands are dirty.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, it's it's funny.
But no, I do think Ryan Gosling, besides all that, he does a good enough. He does a good job.
Yeah, I think it's a memorable performance. I think
Yeah.
because I think it's like a performance that's like memorable, mainly because he stares. Him and Carey Mulligan, their romance scenes are, they can be a little awkward because it is them just literally like looking at each other very lovingly.
I mean, outside of this and maybe The Notebook, this is probably his most famous role, wouldn't you say?
It's up there, definitely. I'm trying to
Uh,
think because he's not in any like comic book movies or anything. He's going to be Ken in the Barbie movie. That might overtake it, but it's
no, and I bet. I mean, I was just trying to think of like what else was he just like where everybody was talking about him.
has he
It's like,
ever been like nominated for anything?
yeah, he got nominated for Half Nelson,
That's right, Hal Half Nelson.
but even then, that was a very like understated role, and like not
Yeah.
many people. Oh, I guess maybe Blade Runner, Nice Guys, La La Land. I'm forgetting a lot here.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I was gonna bring up La La Land, but I forgot about Blade Runner, and he is really good in Blade Runner and First Man as well. But he definitely has a niche role. He kind of like maybe the one time I saw him really because this Drive thing, he seems like he likes to play the quiet guy role a lot. But then there was the Nice Guys, which he was in, and that was definitely kind of a break from that, where he went for a comedy role. That
yeah,
was a little different.
he was like a bumbling smart ass character.
Yeah, and I don't. Did you ever watch Only God Forgives?
No,
He literally plays the same role, but even worse. The silence. Oh my god, maybe we'll talk about that movie one day. That is Drive like to the 10th extreme. Like it is insane.
I never watched it because of the poor reviews at the time,
Yes, it's bad.
but it's he kind of like gets known as this, and now it's so funny that like he's this really handsome leading man, and now he's kind of like known as like this meme for like
Uh-huh.
people like cinephiles or
Yeah,
whatever.
the stinky nerdy man thinks that's him because
Yeah, that's literally me.
yeah. Um
So, but yeah, getting back into the movie,
yes.
it's so standard. Oscar Isaac gets into some issues where he was offered protection while in prison, and now he owes these people a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
type of thing, and he gets beaten up, and the driver doesn't want to see Carey Mulligan because they say like, oh, they're going to go after my wife and kid next, and
Mm-hmm.
so he agrees to take on this heist for free, basically to kind of wipe the debt away, and eventually they do the heist. Standard gets killed in the heist, and it's like a heist that goes wrong.
Yeah,
And
and yes, Ryan Gosling is helping the woman that he is like in love with, I would say, her husband, which is really silly when you think about it. But I guess he's
yeah,
just a nice guy.
what a simp.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, just like me. Oh my god. But no, the crime goes wrong, and that's where this movie takes a tone shift. This is another thing that gets people, I think, is that the tone in this movie does like it's one of those where it flips a complete switch. Like because before, it's kind of romance 80s, like really hazy, a little bit of crime elements, but then it gets dark real
Yeah,
fast.
yeah, it's like an indie drama, I want to say, like for the first half of the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, like you said, then it just turns into this suspense action thriller.
Hmm. Yeah, and it comes hyper violent because Christina Hendricks is in this as well. We didn't bring her up. Another person that's I can't, another addition to this cast. And there's a scene.
I forgot how small her role was, and I was like, I was
Yeah,
expecting her to be in this movie a lot longer. I'm like, oh no, she's only in this movie for like 10 minutes.
yeah, exactly. She plays that one part because Ryan Gosling finds out it's a setup and like slaps her around. Like when it puts on his driving gloves, is like, all right, time to
I
slap this woman.
I and him like trying to intimidate her was funny too. It's like, I will hurt you.
Yeah, and I like how you did the finger point, because that's what he has this finger point there. He's like, I will hurt you. Don't lie to me again. Very
you
quietly.
you will take me to him right now.
Yeah. And I think it's that scene cuts. There's no direction. You don't really find out how he gets there, but he figures out where this guy Cook is at the strip club pretty fast.
Yeah, he finds out, and
Mm.
then eventually from that he finds out that guy Cook was actually working for Nino, Ron Perlman,
Yeah. So
and it turned out Ron Perlman had a hand in the robbery.
yeah, and a hand in the setup, because Ryan Gosling ends up with the money and he wants nothing to do with the money, because he doesn't want the bad blood with it. And that's like the last like 45 minutes of this movie is him trying to get rid of this money, but having to murder people along the way.
Yeah, he's very much like trying to get the money back. It's like I don't want it. I don't want the
Mhm.
money.
Yeah. I don't want it. And it's like it gets hyper violent. Like there's a scene where Nino sends a guy after him, the elevator scene where the lights dim, Carrie Mulligan's in there, he kisses Carrie Mulligan, and then right after kissing her, smashes this guy's head in, like stomps it in, and it shows it. It is, wow, it's a lot to see.
Yeah, it's very very violent, and
Yeah.
like the guy that screwed up, like Albert Brooks, just stabs the guy in the neck.
Yes. And like, yeah, stabs him in the neck. I think stabs him in the eye with a fork as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so gross. Like they have no problem just like showing all this stuff, and
Yeah.
eventually they find out that it was the driver that has the money, and
Mhm.
so they go over to Bryan Cranston's garage, and Albert Brooks murders Bryan Cranston's character, and
Yeah.
it's such a subtle scene. It's not like this big over the top murder. I mean,
No.
it's because he's at first Bryan Cranston's like, he's in Mexico. Oh, I remember because they find out because Bryan Cranston snitched at
Yes, yeah.
first,
Well, I
and
think he like didn't try to snitch, but like he did it like we called Bernie for help, and then it just got screwed. It was a bad move to do that, because they play on that Bryan Cranston is unlucky the whole movie, that he just has made unlucky moves his whole life.
yeah, he's very much very inept and just makes
Yeah.
the wrong decisions constantly. And
Mm.
he tells Bernie that the driver, he's like, he's probably in Mexico now. Who knows? And
Hmm.
he's like, all right, well, that's that then. And he shakes Bryan Cranston's hand, and just like as he's shaking his hand, Bernie just pulls out a straight razor and just like goes
Yep.
across his arm, and he's just like, shh, it's over, it's over, it's
Yeah,
okay.
he's like, it's painless. It's not gonna hurt anymore. Yeah, that scene gets me every time. I remember in the theater seeing that, because it was a very fast move of him shaking his hand and then quickly flips it and like slashes his wrist. And I just remember being in the theater like, oh my god, it was all. But yeah, it was it's brutal, it's sad, because I like that character Shannon. You can't help but feel bad for the guy, because this whole situation is just like almost like a comedy of errors, except not funny at all.
Yeah, it's very much like it's just anything that possibly could go wrong with this whole thing. It just keeps keep getting worse and worse each time.
Yeah.
And then when Ryan Gosling sees it, like, I gotta take revenge now, and he
Hmm.
goes around it. Okay, one part of this movie that I think does not work
Hmm.
is when Ryan Gosling goes to murder Nino, Ron Perlman's
Yeah.
character, and Ryan Gosling throughout the whole scene has this really stupid like it's a mask that you wear when you're stunt driving, so that way it looks like somebody completely different, like in the car, and
Hmm.
it's a stationary mask, so there's no facial expressions or anything. It just has this like dumb like open like mouth stare look to it,
Yeah. I
and
I never
Ryan Gosling wears it.
I never understood why he wore that mask there, because they all know who killed Nino and all that. But yeah, they have that scene where he's wearing that mask and watching Nino laugh in the pizzeria, just like staring blankly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's that's the part I'm gonna like. Okay, that's like that. That's not as good as I remember that. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of that's a little too goofy, and that's coming out of the like the meme potential of it is just like ugh, like that. It would have been
Mhm.
more effective if he just didn't have that dumb mask on.
Yeah, because I think the kill is pretty good because he makes Nino crash and it's like dark on the beach and he basically drowns Nino in the dark.
Yeah,
Very stylish. That's this movie in a nutshell. Like it's hard to talk about that, but it is a very style heavy movie. If you subscribe to a lot of like style over substance kind of deal, that this movie could be up that alley.
it's very much like kind of like what we've talked about before, like Giallo, where it's a
Yeah.
very atmospheric type of movie. You just want to
Hmm.
you want to get lost in this world. You want to experience everything in it. So you're like,
Hmm.
I just want to be immersed in this whole thing.
Exactly.
And it's definitely a vibe movie. And then they do eventually have a confrontation at the very end with Bernie and the driver, and
Hmm.
it does end on an ambiguous ending.
Yeah, it does. It has that moment that like lasts forever, where Albert Brooks is dead, and you think Ryan Gosling's dead. He's just sitting in the car, and it takes like a minute for him to start moving again, and then he drives. I
I
drive.
drive.
I drive. Yeah, it's hard to explain, right?
There's something about it,
Mm-hmm. But it's
but
still the same.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
No.
Uh,
Uh,
but we're talking about it.
we are talking about. Yes, but Drive it. Um,
I okay. Honest opinion on Drive.
mhm,
Uh, it's not the greatest movie ever made. It's not.
mhm.
My love of it has toned down, but it's still a very very strong movie.
Yeah.
It's very much like I can still watch it, get a ton of enjoyment out of it. I can still
Mhm.
um, be immersed into that world and enjoy all the performance in there. And like I said, just some of the best performances, like from like Albert Brooks, like from One, and just I mean, it completely holds its own. You know, it's super solid movie.
Mhm.
Not top 10 movies ever made.
What?
I'm sorry, Nathan. I looked at your letterbox. You gave it a perfect score.
I did give it a perfect score, but here's the thing.
That doesn't like you don't hand those out like candy.
I know. I think I have almost 3,000 movies logged on Letterboxd, and I think I only have like 90 something 5-star movies. I don't hand them out like candy, but I will say there are moments that are a little silly, but it's one of those movies. Sometimes you just have favorite movies in your catalog that are like movies that mean a lot to you. And this movie
Yeah.
definitely was a chapter of my life. And I love revisiting it and just sitting in it and enjoying it. And like you said, I still think it's a very strong movie. I still think it's really cool, really stylish. The soundtrack, we didn't touch a lot on
Oh
it, but
yeah.
the soundtrack I think still is an amazing soundtrack. The songs in this are listenable to this day. No, I think it's a great movie. Just a
Yeah.
really fun vibe movie, and it means a lot to me. So I like it.
Yeah. And that's kind of like for me, like the
Hmm.
Warriors, it's like
Hmm.
I know for a fact it's not the greatest movie ever made, but
No,
it's a movie that means a lot to me and I always go back to. So
yeah.
I can easily see how this would be somebody's um a movie like that. And you know what? On the other end of the spectrum, if this is your favorite movie all time, you think it's the greatest movie ever made, more power to you.
More power to you. Yes.
But
Don't let the
is that
haters make fun of you.
if that is literally you, then that good for you. I nothing but the best.
Seriously, enjoy life how you want to enjoy it. If you love Drive, if you want to be Ryan Gosling, just don't kill anyone. That's all I
Yeah.
ask.
Oh, so I did want to talk about one thing I forgot to mention was when they were developing the character from this movie is I I forget at the author I think I read originally was like this character was a guy that was obsessed with other driving movies, so like watching like
Mhm.
Bullet and all
Yeah.
those other ones. So a character that everyone says this is literally me. The character is literally like, that's
Oh,
literally
literally.
me. Like he's pointed
Yeah.
at like Steve McQueen. I was like, that's literally me.
Isn't that funny? That I think that's the funniest thing.
Like that's why he dresses like a driver.
Yeah.
Like
Do you know the first draft of this movie when it was like floating around for a little bit? Do you know who was originally supposed to be Driver? I think this
I
is a
do,
very common fact, but
I do, but go ahead.
Hugh Jackman, that would have been a very different movie, honestly.
Like a mid 2000s, probably like Hugh
Yeah.
Jackman. Like it probably would have turned out to be like a big budget Hollywood movie like nobody
Yeah.
would ever care about.
I recommend it for sure if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, definitely give this one a recommend.
Hmm.
But Nathan, what are we going to be talking about next time?
So recently, unfortunately, we had another celebrity death. Jim Brown died, who was in a ton of movies that I need to see. So me and Ryan started talking. I think Ryan, you were the big one for this of getting a week out to in his memory. So we're gonna do two movies from Jim Brown next week, and I picked for Tuesday Black Gun, which is streaming on Amazon Prime and Tubi.
Terrific. Cannot wait. I'm actually really looking forward to that week. But if you have any thoughts, opinions about this podcast that you'd like to email us please over at driveindoublefeaturepodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at DIDFpod. And once again, check out the Patreon at patreon.com/driveindoublefeaturepodcast. But until next time.
Until next time.